I remember that a lot of people used to find intimidating installing Arch Linux. This was prior the Arch install script was first introduced in the Arch Linux ISO. So today we're going to be installing Arch Linux the hard way. We're going to be installing Arch Linux without using this Arch install script. So let's get started. I will be doing this process in a virtual machine. I'm going to be using Unboxes, but you can use VMware, or you can also use VirtualBox if you want. So let's proceed to create the virtual machine. You can call it however you want. For this one, I'm going to choose UEFI, and let's give it a list, just 8 gigs. And let's add 40 gigabytes for the storage. Click on create, and we're going to start booting Arch. Let's choose Arch install. Okay, so we are in the part where usually people will just go ahead and use the Arch install script, but this time we're not gonna do that. We are gonna do everything from scratch. So the first thing we wanna check is to see if we really boot up in the UEFI mode. So this command will look for the EFI directory. So if it exists, we are good to go. So we want to check for that folder. Let's see. And there you can confirm that we actually have booted in UEFI mode. Now we can probably proceed to see if we have internet connection. Since I'm using a virtual machine, it will actually detect I'm connected through Ethernet. So it will actually detect that I already have network. So for this time, we can just do a simple ping. Let's put it 3 times, and we can ping, I don't know, let's ping Google. And there you can see that we are actually having receiving packets. So we have internet connection. So we're good to go. So now we're going to proceed to make the partitions. So the first thing you want to check is you want to list your storage devices. In this case, we are in a virtual machine. So we're going to use the following command. So we're going to use lsblk, which is stand for list block. And there we see that our this is the one with the VDA. So we're gonna use that disk. So make sure you find your disk. Just be careful. You can erase your entire hard drive if you are doing this on bare metal and not on a virtual machine. Okay, so to start the partition, we're gonna use the fdisk command. I'm gonna do fdisk. We're gonna put def, and we're gonna put our storage. In this case was VDA. We're gonna press enter. And if for some reason probably you will need help to see the commands that you need to introduce to partition the disk, you can follow the command there. You can use the M for help. And there you can see all the commands we're gonna be using. So let's start with create a new empty GPT partition table. Now we are creating a GPT partition first, which is required for the UEFI. So we're going to proceed with the letter N, add new partition. The first one is going to be the default, which is 1. The first sector is going to be default. And the last sector is going to be 5, 12. Now we have to change the partition type for this partition to EFI. So we're going to choose change partition type, which is the letter T. Which partition we want to change, that will be the first partition. And there you go, change type of partition. So it have changed to EFI system. Now we can proceed with the second partition. For this one, we're gonna press the letter N again, add a new partition. It's gonna be default 2. That's fine. First sector and the last sector. So we're gonna use this entire disk for the second partition, which is okay. There you go. So the file size total will be of 39.5 gigs, which is accurate. Now we want to do is write this partition table. So we're going to be using the letter W. There you go. If everything have gone successful here, you're going to be seeing partition table has been altered. Now what we want to do is probably let's block once again. And there we can see that our disk VDA has 2 partitions. Have VDA1, which is the one we created first, and it has the second partition, VDA2. So after creating the 2 partitions, we are going to format those partitions. So that's going to be our next step. We can do make file system the fat. This one is gonna be fat 32. So it's going to be our first disk, VDA1, and the second disk is going to be make file system. For this one, we're going to be using the BTRFS file system. So you're gonna type here BTRFS. We're gonna choose our second partition, VDA2. There you go. Now you can do the list block command once again, and you can see the difference. You are going to see that our first partition has been formatted as a FAT32, and the second one is going to be BTRFS file system. Now, in the next step, we're going to be creating the subvolumes for the BTRFS file system. So this is where BTRFS starts to shine. We're going to be mounting the partition temporarily so we can create subvolume. So basically what we're going to be doing is separating the logical areas inside the same file system. So let's proceed to create the BTRFS subvolumes. We can clear this first. We're going to be doing mount def VBA, our second drive, our second partition into MNT. After that, we're going to create the BTRFS subvolume for root, home, and for snapshot. So let's start with the root. Okay, we repeat the same process, but this time we're going to add home. And we repeat the same process, but this time we want to add the snapshot. After this, we can proceed to unmount. So we can do you mount MNT. Now we want to mount all those subvolumes that we just created. We're going to do mount. So now we're going to create the directory for snapshot, homes, and boot. We can do like here. Now if we do an ls -la and mnt, we can see the directories that we just have created. That's where we're going to be mounting the rest of the BTRFS file system. Now we want to reuse that same command that we use for mount our root, but in this case, we're going to use home. And here we're just simply going to type home. Now let's proceed to do the same with snapshot. So mount. Here we're going to say snapshot. And here snapshot. Now let's just create the directory where we're going to be mounting our boot. And there we're going to mount our first partition. VDA def VDA1, remember? That's the boot partition. And we're going to mount that in the last directory that we created. So mount in MNT boot Effie. There you go. Okay, honestly, I think we can say that we have done the most difficult part because now the next step, what we're going to do now is just to install the base system. We're going to be using pacstrap command. So we're going to do pacstrap. And now we're going to say, okay, what do we want to install? In MNT, we want to install the base system, Linux, firmware. We also want to install Vim. We also want to install sudo. And we also want to install Open SSH. And of course, we also want to install network management, network manager. So we hit enter and so we can say that's like the fun part, no? Installing stuff. Okay. Now, what else we want to install here? Using pacstrap in MNT. Now we want to install GRUB. Okay. I think we have installed basic packages that we probably need to boot our system for the first time. Now, the next step is to generate the fstab file and a chroot. Now, what is an fstab file, right? The fstab files basically tells the system which partition to mount first at boot and where. And the chroot allow us to make modifications to the system like we were already boot into it. So now we can do gen fstab. Now let's proceed with the chroot. Okay, so now let's configure basic things like the time zone, local, host name, and host. We're going to start with the time zone. We can do ln. Now let's sync the hardware clock with hardware clock. Let's now generate the local file. And we type local gen. Okay. Let's configure now stuff like language. Let's choose our language, which is English in this case. Let's now choose a name for our machine, our host name. In this case, I'm gonna call it Arch VM since I'm in a virtual machine. You can choose the name you want. Last one, let's just set up some host. So now we're going to proceed with creating the password for root, and we're also going to create our first user and its password as well. Start with password. Okay, there we created the password for root. Now we're going to create our user. Now in this case, I'm going to type my name. I'm gonna choose my own name. Let's just call it Jorge. You can, of course, choose your own name here. And let's set up a password for that user. Okay, password data success. Now let's just add the user to the sudoers file. And let's change the permission just to make it secure. Next, we're going to proceed to enabling Network Manager and SSH. Now let's proceed to install GRUB, our bootloader. Okay, so now that we are done, we can proceed to exit and unmount everything and then reboot. And there you go. We have successfully installed Arch Linux the hard way. This is our GRUB bootloader. So we choose Arch Linux. Here is asking for our username, the one we created, which is Jorge, and our password. And there you go. We have successfully installed Arch Linux the hard way. Now, things that we can do in our first boot, we can check our subvolumes, our BTRFS subvolumes. We can do that one with the following command. And that's our subvolumes that we created earlier in this process. We can also check for our network or Ethernet with the following command. And there you can see that we have Ethernet connection. We are wired in this case, and we can see our device or internet interface. And lastly, we can also check the EFI boot entries with the following command. So from here, you can start customizing your setup however you like. Like you can install a snapper or timeshift to manage the snapshots. You can also install a desktop environment, whether it's a GNOME or KDE, your preference, or you can also install a Windows tiling manager like Hyper-One. Now, I know that a lot of people would rather use the Arch install script instead of going through all these series of steps. But for somebody that was using Linux for the past years, I really found this process to be entertaining and you can really learn a lot about how Linux works. So if you really like this video, I hope that you find it insightful and entertainment as well. And just let me know in the comments what you think. Will you be using this method to install Arch Linux in your next setup? Or probably let me know in the comments what type of videos would you like to see next. So see you in the next video.